Hi everyone, welcome to Scottish Summit 2021. I'm really excited that I'm presenting this year as a lightning session onto the Scottish Summit 2021, which is an event which I might personally feel really privileged to be a part of this event. And also as an audience, I'm being excited to also join the other sessions parallelly. So what we're covering today is like Azure Functions with custom connector. This is a step where people with a basic background with Azure functionality having within the Azure stack can use, or the people who are coming from the background of Dynamics 365, a CE environment, or Power Platform, they can actually have a look into this one and start looking how can we adapt to this change. Yeah, that's the main thing. So firstly, I would like to also thank the partners who've been doing an amazing job in sponsoring and supporting this amazing event. Because of them, today we can do these sessions, and really pleased with this, guys. Okay, agenda. So we are covering today with an introduction of myself, and later we'll be jumping into what are Azure Function apps as it is, and then the extension, like how do we start migrating to Azure Functions. So it's like ALM process, the end-to-end project. Scalability, when we roll out to an enterprise project, then we will be looking at the benefits and best practices so that people can learn from the experienced and Microsoft roadmap, especially the people in the industry who are like working to make this possible to ourselves to deploy or build amazing applications by using all these beautiful features what are available, and best practices gives us a better chance to have an insights from the experience of what we got from the others. And lastly, I'll be concluding with some takeaways and vote of thanks. Okay, let's kickstart today. So myself, I'm a technical architect, a bit of experience in this industry for quite a while, over a decade, and I'm an active participant through the Skyscale Systems, a company which does quite a lot good stuff on the community in the Microsoft platform. And you can follow me on the Twitter. Later at the end of the slides, I will share some more details of my contact details. Let's start Azure Function Apps. So what are Azure Function Apps? Basically, these are the event-driven apps. So if you look into any client side or server side, we need an event to trigger the business logic to do some execution stuff. For that, within the Azure stack, we have one beautiful feature that is nothing but Azure Function Apps. And these are serverless. What does that mean? When it's like you don't need to purchase or you don't need to host a separate server to run these apps. They are serverless, they are readily available. It's pay-as-you-go kind of service, and you can use this to automate some of your business processes and part of Azure stack itself. Okay, then what are the languages supported to build this Azure Function Apps? Definitely, this is a bit of coding. I wouldn't say it is something where it's a drag and drop. What you see is what you get kind of feature. No, it is a programming. Okay, so why I'm introducing this particular thing is like being honest, but the coolness, the cool guys who are after these features is the exact audience I'm looking for. But also for the new audience who don't do coding, this is a good start to start with, where you can do some cool stuff with this Azure Function App. So yes, C# is something which I love, C# and client-side scripting, JavaScript as well. And yes, outside the Microsoft platform programming languages like Python you can use, and one of the strongly typed in the client-side TypeScript, which is really good. I'm really liking this last few years now. So those are the languages being supported. Next, custom connector. These are the features where we can deploy these Azure functions across to the Power Platform using the custom connector, and that is a feature which is now made available. And how do I develop these functions apps? So to develop the function apps, I need a tool like IDE, which is Visual Studio Code, which is very lightweight, very powerful, and it has an amazing community as well to bring a lot of extensions into this one. Bit powerful than that one is Visual Studio 2019 version, and you need a trial subscription to start with from the Azure, which is like a freebie of $150 pounds per month, and you get for 12-month subscriptions. And also you need to take a 30 days Dynamics 365 trial subscription. I'm very specific to say that yes, please, the 30 days is involved with Dynamics C apps, business apps. Okay, then connections and security. So since these all platforms are interoperable, we can use the same security which has been authenticated and authorized from the Azure Active Directory to the platform, whether it's a Power Platform or Dynamics 365, or whether it's a Azure, you can set up the relevant roles, but to authenticate you always need to go to the Azure Active Directory. So the holistic authenticate method is in one place. If you authenticate in one application, and if it is a line of business of applications within CE, or any of the applications within the Azure, or the beautiful features within the Power Platform, you can still be interoperable and can access from one application to another without any issues, because they all work under the same hierarchy of security, which is Azure Active Directory. Okay, and coming to the last bit, which is price. Yes, of course. Oh, there's cool stuff there, lots happening. What is the price? How do you pay like this thing? So we have three plans: consumption plan, premium plan, and app service plan. So I would recommend try with few basic things like consumption plan. What you consume, you pay that one. Premium plan is you get some dedicated servers and kind of dedicated resources for you. App service plan is a bit of tricky, but it is something which I would definitely also have a look depending on your need. Again, I say is you don't have to pay when you don't use. That is amazing. That's all the serverless feature stuff. Okay, next we will be going into the demo. Okay, let's do a high level what we're going to achieve over here. So we will be installing the Visual Studio Code to start with, then Azure Functions tool extension. Since the demo is very less time, I have done myself all this setup, so I wouldn't say, but there's a documentation if you want to go through and install yourself. So get the Visual Studio, get some Azure Core Tools extensions, install the node.js, then create an Azure trial account. Once you have all this, then let's jump into the Visual Studio Code, start to create a function within that, then publish that into the Azure subscription, whichever the trial subscription which we have created earlier. And then once you publish, you have to create some resource group, low storage location, where it is, like, because Azure is across the globe. Now I would recommend don't publish every part of the globe, just focus on one particular area where you think all the resources, whether it's a Power Platform or the Dynamics and Azure, put all of them in one particular location, whether it's a UK South or maybe somewhere in India, you can try to put in one location as much, so that the resources are all in one place, tightly coupled, and the performance will be better. And next thing is the Azure custom connector. So once you have this built, and then you can release that as register that in the app registrations on the Azure Active Directory. That is the part we have to do to develop the Azure function in the Visual Studio. Try to register that one as an app registration so that your security is cleared. Copy the details from client ID, client secret. Those are the key things you have to copy. And then once those are ready, then you can jump into the next stage, is going to the Power Platform and adding this as a custom connector. Once we have the custom connector in place, then the last bit is like, how do you do the Power Automate, adding this into the Power Automate and making this automate, so that the cool stuff is like you can actually interact your business logic in Azure function with the Power Platform using a Power Automate. You can interact with the Dynamics database, and that is all low code, no code. So you do the heavy stuff in the Azure functions, any business logics and stuff, and you do rest all the bits, make it available for the citizen developers or pro code, low code, no code developers to actually make use of this business logic in their Power Automate or basic features available within the Power Platform. Okay, that's a cool stuff. Okay, so let's carry on with the demo, which is an interesting part to see actually in reality. Okay, so now this is a Visual Studio Code, which is a very lightweight, and really I started to recently use this Visual Studio Code, though I've been a big fan of Visual Studio normal 2019 version. Coming to these particular things, there is a tab called as Explorer. There's another tab called as Azure. So within the Explorer, we see what are the new recently created items we will be having, and within the Azure we can see whether we have any subscription. If we have a subscription, what are the workspaces we have created. So Since the demo is having a limited time, so I need to speed up the things by creating myself. But again, this is all documented. I'm sharing the links in the takeaways where you can start everything from scratch, like setting up or installing the Visual Studio Code, and then installing the extensions, which are Azure Tools extensions, which is a good thing which we need to have. These are the places where you can have all the sorry, this is the place extensions where I was mentioning, like you need to have Azure Functions, Tools, which is already installed. You need to install the Node.js, so that's the reason I can see some bit of Node.js installation as well. Yeah, so modules, so this is the module which I need to install. So these are the few things we have to do, and the good part is, like, once you have basic things being set up, then you don't have to worry to start your Azure Functions. Let's start now and see. So to start with, we will say create a Azure function, then it will be saying what kind of trigger would you like to have. So let's pick up a HTTP trigger. I would be giving demos Scottish Summit 2021 Azure Functions, so that should be fine, hopefully. Then it'll be asking what are your functions will be sitting at. So I can give my underscore functions. Then would you like to have any permissions and stuff? So I would keep it anonymous to start with. So now it is building up, and here we go. We have a function app being created. It's as simple, it's a lightweight and easier to create Azure Functions in the Visual Studio Code. I'm just loving the way how the IDE is being made available, very lightweight, creating Azure Functions in this one and connecting back to the Azure portal from here. These are all there, amazing. So let's do locally to start with, then we will jump into the next screen, which is the Azure portal. So over here you can see the function name, the trigger. This is a HTTP trigger. It is having a anonymous authentication, and then we have some parameter which we have to pass, and we will see the parameter within coming with some extension. I would like to just run this one. So before I run, I can see here whether I have any of the Azure functions being created. So I would be just saying F5, so then it'll be running myself. So just in your keyboard click F5 and it'll be executing. Once it is executing, then it should give me a URL. This particular URL is something which you can copy and put into any of the browsers to see whether it is up and running or not. Yeah, it's not that bad, it's nearly done. So to consider these kind of functions, that you can try it with different triggers, and mainly the area where I was very impressed is, like, you can run this locally in your PC, build it everything locally and publish into the Azure, and then you can actually go to the portal and you can make it available across any of the external resources trying to access through the Azure. So there are several ways. Now you can see this particular portal is available, and this is a cool feature where you have a follow link straight away from here, rather than copy and pasting it to a browser, which I liked actually. So over here, so the trigger is executed successfully. That looks good to me. So let's give some parameter values. So if I go and give a parameter, so we know that name is the variable, we have to give something variable. So let's write welcome to 2021, and if I enter, I can see it's going through. Oh, I've done something silly. So let me see here. Am I having the HTTP? Oh, that's a missing bit. So if I go to the HTTP, yeah, Scottish Summit. There we go. So hello, welcome to Scottish Summit. So that's how it has triggered, and if I go back to the portal, you can see it has triggered and it has executed, and it's giving some extensions to us. So this is all being done and executed locally, and also you can see it is being updated over here. Now, once this particular Azure function is ready, then the next turn is like how to publish into the Azure portal. So all I need to do is F1 and it gives me open the Azure functions in the portal. So this is something where I can see what is available in the portals. But prior to that, since I need to publish, always I will be going to this nice icon, Azure icon, and I would say from here, deploy to Azure function. So deploy to function app, which is nothing but actually it's going and publishing into the Azure portal. Then it will be giving a number of steps, like saying that what is your resource group in the Azure portal, then what is your storage account. If you don't have one, it keeps creating one, and also it gives you a bit of more resources to add, and also the location where you want to host this particular Azure function. So these are the basic things which you can do everything from a single click from here rather than jumping into the portal. Since I have already published and I've shown you how to create a Azure function locally, and I will be just right away going into the Azure portal. So this is the way. Once you've done, you execute it and you see your result as you've seen that from here, and it is up and running now. And in order to publish that into the Azure, all you need to do is publish from here, which I'm not doing now as time constraint. So if I go to the Visual Source into portal, so portal.azure.com, that takes me directly into my workspace Azure functions, which is already been published. So I have already an existing Azure function, which is something very standard, and I've used the same notation of the function name, which is similar to the one sample in the takeaways. I'm sharing it. So this particular function is available and up and running. Once we have the Azure function, we should be able to see a bit of more details on this particular, like get function URL. It gives me an URL which you can do a similar exercise by copy and pasting and testing it. And also once you have done with this one, we will be going to Azure Active Directory. So Azure Active Directory, within that I will be picking up this particular resource. So over here I should be able to see what are my existing Azure Active Directories. So I have one with the SkyScale system. So if I try to see what other accounts I have, I'll be fine to look into. And over here I need to just do app registration. This is one of the community edition which I'm using, SkyScale Systems Limited. Within this Azure Active Directory, I have this particular app that is being registered, and it is being associated to this particular app is being registered. And once we have the app registered, then we will be getting a client ID, which will be at the part of this one, which is a client ID. Then we have to create a new secret for this one. So these are the steps. Again, I'm just giving you which is already been set up due to the constraints. So if you have a new client secret, then it gives you a bit of like how long you want to take it, and it overwrites. Always make sure you make a copy of this one. So I have these details already backed up, so that's the reason I'm fine. But if you want to create one, you have to create a new secret, and please copy it straight away, because once you move away the screens, this is the way you can see the expression. Okay, so we got a client secret, we got a client ID. Then it's time to actually jump into the Power Platform. So if I go to the Power Platform, this is a place where this is a third step. Like what we've done now so far is like created an Azure function, we deployed that across to the Azure portal, and then we have registered against an Azure Active Directory by giving a app registration with the client secret. So once we have the client ID and client secret from the app registration, we go to the portal. So within the portal, I would be going to the maker portal. So it is called as make.powerapps.com. So this is the area where we can actually create a custom connector. So I'm just waiting that for that one. So if I go and open, I'm just trying to open my recent notes where I have saved all my Yep, nearly there. So we have the custom connectors, and I need to make sure I'm in the right instance, which is over here. And within the right instance, I would be going to the data, and here is a place I can see custom connectors. Okay, so we have a custom connectors, and the way how the custom connectors are created is like we have to provide some basic details how we are browsing. So I need to copy the function URL. So if I go, let me take a client ID. This is the one I can copy and put it over my note. And once I have that particular details around with me, then I'll be actually going into the sorry. Okay, so we got the Azure Function app over here, and I am just trying to copy this particular thing, client ID, making a note on the client ID. Then I would be going to the client secret since we already have, but I can create a new one, client secret. So let's take a another one. So let me create sales secret one. It's a Azure Function secret. So you can see here now I can copy this one, and I can make a note somewhere so that I can copy this one. I can make use of it later on. And once I go to the custom connectors, I would be creating a new custom connector. Let's do it from scratch. So this is like demo custom connector. I think I have one demo custom connector. So let's do one with a name custom connector in January. Once I've given a name, it will be asking me what is the URL. So I need to provide the URL over here. So if I go back to the Azure Functions, within the functions, I will be having the particular URL where it is being hosted. So if I get this particular URL, so let's copy this one, and I would be going back to the Power Apps, and I would be pasting over here. So here, all I need is that particular hosting environment. Once I have that, I would be going to the next stage, which is authentication. Again, since I've already configured the authentication using Azure Active Directory, then I will be going for the OAuth 2.0 to authenticate. So over here, it'll be asking me what is your client ID and what is your client secret. So let's whatever the values we have copied earlier in the app registration, I can use that one. So over here, then I need to have a client secret, which I've copied from the app registration. Okay, then the URL. So we already got that URL from here. So earlier, copy and URL. So again, I don't need the entire thing. I need the HTTP. Yes, don't forget this one. So add that one. And once you have this one, you should be able to generate. Yeah. Okay, so definition, refresh URL. These are the things which needs to be automatically created. So token URL, since I have a client ID, let me try to see this. So since I have already Azure Active Directory, I don't think so I need a token URL for this one. That is the reason it was asking me. Let's copy this one and let me paste again because I have the login URL. Okay, so the client secret, I need to copy the client secret what I have got earlier. Client secret. And resource URL, this is the place I would be pasting. Sorry, I've just copied the secret key. That's not a problem. Let me copy the URL what I have for the Azure Functions. Okay, so I'm going to create the connector now. It needs to be a container secured one, so it needs to be HTTPS, and it needs to be host cannot contain a schema. Something wrong, definition. Let me rename that one and see whether it creates one other one, because I think I've given a similar name. Okay, so if I go to an action and I say demo summary, and the operation ID, I can give some a random ID to say, okay, let's pick up some ID. Okay, here I'm giving a request. Request would be a post method, and I need to paste the post, and I need to provide the URL what I've copied earlier, which should be something in a similar fashion. And I need to give a JSON body, so here I will be entering, and I would say double quotes name, and I think I can keep it empty so that I can rerun later on. Okay, and once I import this one, it gives me a list. Okay, that looks fine, and let's test it now. So to test it, you create the custom connector before testing. So create the custom connector. Host cannot contain schema, so general. Okay, that's my mistake. I should have done is like, you shouldn't be putting this one. So security, and that's all we've done. I think we have got the definition, and we got the an ID, and once we have saved, then we are going to create the connector. I've just renamed on the fly. It's saying January 1. All we done is now from portal we came to the Power Platform, we went to custom connectors, we have created a custom connector, and we have associated the client ID and client secret. It's always good to copy the URL, which is like a redirect URL, which we have got from the security in the earlier definition. So this is always good to copy this back and paste into your app registration, where it basically tells what is your redirect URL. So here I have that redirect URL, which is almost like a similar, which I've copied earlier and pasted. So this is the same URL. That is the reason it's fine. Okay, so once we have that, we can now test it over here itself. So all I need is like a new connection. So let's do a create a connection. So provides a connection to data. So, and since I am using Azure Active Directory, and I can switch between the platforms but use the same authentication method. Yeah, how good it is. So it has created. So if I go to custom connectors now, I would be able to see the new one, and I should be able to test it straight away. Let's do it over here, a test, and it is having a property. So welcome to Scottish Summit 2021. Test the operation. So status 200, and you can see hello, welcome to Scottish Summit 2021. This is a similar way what we have seen earlier in the local platform, now on the cloud, and also within the Power Platform. Okay, so same functionality I was able to use. What else can we do with this beautiful functionality what we have created with custom connectors? So whatever the heavy lift and shift kind of development, complex business operations we all develop by programming, we can put all in the Azure Functions. We push them back into the Azure portal and make it available as a custom connector in the Power Platform. So since the custom connector is available, I can actually go to show you one of the flows which I've created with an existing similar custom connector, what it does basically is like it tries to take the data from instructions. Yeah, it tries to take the instructions within a variable, whatever the ongoing variable I'm trying to give some information. It calls the custom connector. So you can see the custom connector can be made available within the Power Automate. So it is an amazing tool. I really love the Power Automate, especially because it makes automate the things in the low code no code platform, which is, see, I'm just typing low code no code. So yeah, so if I go to custom connectors, so tab, I can see all the custom connectors which are available. So if I select this one, I can see what are the trigger actions I have. I have a demo action over here, and I was able to use that one. So just to delete this one because I've already made use of another one. And all it does is once we send an input, it gives me a response, and that response I'm using to talk to Dynamics Dataverse with an entity called as notes. So within the notes, I'm creating a record within the Dataverse, and let's try to test this one, or we can just run from the outside. So not to make any changes because it's already there, and run it. So once I run the flow, I should be able to see what happened to this flow. So if I go to this one, and I can see it's been succeeded. Yeah, so if I go to the Dynamics instance, I think so, I've opened somewhere possibly. Yeah, this is a Sales Hub Dynamics instance. So I think I don't have notes entity on the sitemap, so I will be opening the advanced find to pick up what are the list of the records that have been created today through the nodes. So since we have executed this particular custom connector Power Automate, it has read the data from the instructions, it has executed the Azure Functions business logic, and it gave the output. The output, what I'm trying to do is I've processed that back to Dynamics, where we can make use of that particular data. So if I go to nodes entity created on today, and if I execute this one, and I can see a record being created just now. So if I open this one, I should be able to see, yeah, this is a timestamp and from custom connector. See how cool the feature is now. So this is the way how we can make use of Azure Functions to do the heavy lift and shift kind of development and move that work across to the Power Platform, and everything is being very securely authenticated and does the scalability of the Azure Functions and a lot of good features. Of course, it's Azure Stack. We can do a lot of things, and it is interoperable between the applications. So going back to the slides now, which we can continue the scalability. So ALM, Application Lifecycle Management. This is the area where we can see how Azure Functions can be used in our regular development. Since we are moving away from our regular development of plugins, custom workflow activities, a bit of custom Windows application kind of development to the cloud, where we will be using Azure Functions to replace that server-side code. Since we are doing this, how can we roll out in Azure DevOps? So I would say in the development and operations, we can actually build all the user stories within the Azure DevOps by putting as a work items. Then we can do the development using the Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio. So within that, we can access the Git or Git repository, GitHub repository from the portal, Azure DevOps. Then we can do a testing plan. Either we can do a unit testing locally by using an extensions which fake XRM use it. That is something which one of my good community mate has made this tool, and it is an amazing tool to do end-to-end testing, and it's very quick, and there's a lot of ways we can test unit testing within the Visual Studio without any issues. And it's amazing for Dynamics community, especially in the CRM world, where we are able to test the plugins in the same way Azure Functions. We can test it without any issues. And once we have these test plans, we can run the test scripts against the test runner, and lastly we can deploy this with the pipelines. So this is an amazing thing where you can do a continuous integrations and continuous deployment of our regular production. Yeah. So then going to the next slide, Power Platform. So we have three platforms. What we have seen today is, like, I've started with the Visual Studio with a bit of development, and I went to the Azure. Then I've released that into the Power Platform. Then I was engaging with the Dynamics. So these three platforms are interoperable, and Azure Functions supports, Power Platform supports, and everything is more secured the way. Why? Because the platforms are working with an authentication from Azure Active Directory. Okay, so whether it is a low code, no code kind of development you start with, you can extend that further with the Azure features like Azure Functions, and later you can use a line of business of applications within the Dynamics like sales app or field service or customer service. So there's several line of business apps which you can use and make it useful. So that is what I was trying to explain here, is it is interoperable. And when I go to the Microsoft Power Platform, which is a feature which I love, this one last few years I've been really liking the way how Microsoft is taking ahead on this thing, where I can see a Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agent. These four components make up the Microsoft Power Platform. It has enough connectors, which is like data connectors, and it has a bit of Azure development, and also the data was, which is previously called as Common Data Service. So these all four components make up the Power Platform. So we can start with the low code, no code kind of model driven apps, develop, automate the things, and also make it a virtual agent or connect that back to a physical human with one of the omni-channel apps. And also we can actually render the data across to the Power BI to have some insights how the data analytics explains us how the business is doing. So okay, so going back to our perfect slide, which I want to give you a holistic view on the architecture, like how does it fit into the real-time world with all the components we can use. So over here we can see that a regular citizen developer with low code, no code functionality can start the application in the every developer kind of thing, where they can use the features what we have seen just now. And then if they think that they want to use a bit of extensions like using a development, then they have to go to use one of the tools which are standard, and also external tools we can use, and that we can engage with Azure Functions as a development if you want to do. That is what we have seen today. And this all can be interacted by using Azure DevOps, where we have our tasks, we have a bit of test suite plans, and we have a repository to hold all the source control. And also we can move the data across to SQL or use external data sources to actually migrate the data from Dynamics into backing up and doing a data warehouse or analytics, and also using the Azure AI, which is something which is going really big. And I'm really excited the future, the way how the AI is being built. And coming to the API management, which is where outside the world of Azure, people can actually interact more securely all these Azure functions, which is exposed as a connectors what we have seen in the Power Platform. In the same way, we can expose these Power Platforms custom connectors into an external world through the API management, and it's more secured and it's quite powerful as well. And that's the reason today a note I want to leave on my session, that start migrating to Azure Functions. Yes, why we need to do now, not later. Why? Because there are some benefits. If we have been working on these plugins for many years in Dynamics, we can see the timeout is at 2 minutes execution timeout, whereas functions we have 5 minutes, and it is a native component within the Azure stack. It is a stateless, you don't have to worry, and you pay whenever you use as for the consumption what you use. And every operation in the Dynamics 365 nowadays counts in your API request, whether it is a plugin, whether it is a JavaScript, whether it's a Power Automate. Every request in the CRUD operations you will be counting as a request. within the standard functionalities. The same count will be reflecting whether you're calling from the Azure functions. So whether I'm using internal functionality, whether plugins, custom workflow activities, or supported functionalities, which like Power Automate, or whether I call from Azure functions, everything counts the same. So since they're all counting the same request, same number of counts, it's no difference whether you work with the internal resources or whether you work from the Azure functions. So this is the bit which I really liked, and that is a thumbs up, which I would say that Microsoft has taken, that yes, Azure functions are adaptable and usable in the interoperable platforms across. Okay, we are at the favorite slide, takeaways. Okay, this is something which I would always love to share with the people. What and how did I do this session, and what are the resources I have gathered to achieve or to do this demo. So this list of all the links which I have is exactly what I've done, and it shouldn't take that long if you want to repeat what I've done exactly. And the moral of this session, what I've done today, is to say that please unlearn the bad habits what we had in the past that we try to take further. It's difficult, I know, but learn the new habits, which is like, which is future, which is low code no code kind of thing. I know you may be a really good developer, or maybe you had a very keen interest in programming and coding, but start the development, or start the business requirements to achieve out of the box or with the low code no code. If you couldn't achieve that one, then extend the application, because a lot of features nowadays we can see the extensions, and a lot of applications are being done with out of the box and low code no code Power Platform. If you do a cool stuff like coding, yes, Azure Functions I would definitely recommend. Unlearn your habits of going to the plugins, custom workflow activities, or any console applications kind of development in CRM world, and move to the Azure Functions to replace. So that is a new habit, I would say. And the book which I would suggest, it's a bit of a kind of like a personal touch from the Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. Hit refresh. That book was amazing. I've just during the Christmas break I've gone through this book, and very impressed the way how a culture change should adapt across, whether it's a development platform, or whether it's a business platform, or whether it's a customer platform. We have to work with a culture change to learn, forget the previous bits and learn the new bits, like learn to unlearn. That's a title I would be really giving this one. And again, with my last slide, I would be concluding saying that please reach me out on my email ID, which is a community email, and also I have a personal blog, LinkedIn and Twitter. I would like to keep a GitHub, but I don't have, but I would be keeping an update on this one. And thank you very much. Appreciate and enjoy rest of this summit. Thank you.